Steve Nedley. I'm an artist in town. I do tattoos and murals and illustrations and all that bit. Well, I've been drawing since I was a little kid. It was something that was a heavy pastime for me. I was raised military, so it was a big thing that I used for, I don't know, finding ways to burn time when you're moving around and, moving town to town. As far as professionally goes, I did my first professional pieces when I was 16, 17. I was selling artwork then, and I had a couple pieces put in I won a contest with Teen People magazine, all this dumb shit. It was it was a super edgy, scare the kids away from teen pregnancy poster, and it was pretty incredible. It was a lot of fun to just make fun of something and then get paid to do it. So I think everyone who has an artistic bent has that imposter syndrome where they're not sure if they're supposed to be here because you admire so many people, and with most of the ways that we consume art nowadays, we only see people's highlights, so we only see their successes, right? So it's really easy to constantly doubt and think maybe I'm not supposed to be here, but it's sort of the audacity of it all to show up, and I don't know, man, people come by and they still get stuff done, and I put my work in, so I don't know, it seems to be validated. Art was a pretty big shaping force when I was growing up. Child of the 90s, we spent a lot of time consuming media and that sort of thing, and it's sort of a language amongst kids at that point, right? You sit around, even if you lack social skills, if you can draw, some character from Rocko's Modern Life or some shit, the other kids might, see it and be like, oh, I know that one, and you have commonality immediately, yada yada yada. I don't know, I really loved it. It was a lot of fun. I like learning the techniques. It's something you can always grow on. Thankfully it's a twitch that I do when I'm nervous. When I have anxiety and everything. So it's something that I'll do to sort of distract me, and then eventually it grew into a skill set, which is kind of weird. My understanding of art's changed over time. Back when I was a kid, I thought it was just a one subject thing. It was clearly this is just drawing, blah. To me now, art is anything that you find yourself passionate about and try to create something with, right? And I'm sort of obsessive about finding new ways to express it. So I started with pencils because that's what you had as a kid. Moved on to, doing acrylics, oil paints, sculpture. I did welding sculpture. I did special effects makeup. I've done, and I've apprenticed under several teachers that way, just because I'm obsessive about collecting the skill. If you like it, when you first start doing it, there's that excitement factor. So you want to, you have that obsession. But then you eventually, when you realize, hey, I actually like this, it's a habit now, and I can see myself doing it for longer, it becomes kind of your guiding star, right? It's something that drags you forward, and you want mastery. That's when you want to go in and learn all the shit, all the fluffy academia that you couldn't be bothered with previously, with all the terms for these things. You learn them when you're that passionate about it, because you end up realizing and just sort of submitting to the fact that this is going to be my life. This is what I really dig. I have a lot of inspirations with R. Crumb, one of the old pen and ink artists around the Mad magazine era. J.C. Leyendecker. I like Sargent. A lot of classic artists, but also a lot of modern ones. I like Kim Young-gi, who passed away earlier this year. He was a modern master. He did a lot of off the top of his head ink work, and when he was in the military, he just drew the vehicles and weapons that he would, that he had to repair, and that gave him this mental encyclopedia of how all these pieces went together, and eventually he could draw without sketching something. Once again, with just taking a fucking pen, he could fill a wall with something that was in perfect perspective, perfect everything. And that's one of the things that pushes me, because I'm an obsessive too. I like sitting down and, I tend to draw when I'm trying to think, I don't know, I love collecting a mental collection of images and things to refer to when I'm creating, so I don't have to find a reference anymore. I can stop and be like, oh, I've drawn something like this. People tend to sit this way. I can, this is how this expression looks, how this feels, this is how people carry themselves when they're tired or when they're angry, and you're just building a visual library to choose from. And I tend to admire artists that can demonstrate that they did that. They did those fundamentals, that they're more substance over style, but then they commit to their style. I know that sounds odd, but what's the point in a art piece that is just a perfect recreation of a photo? Like, that's amazing, that's great technique, but the photo's already been done. I never went to school, so like I didn't do the traditional path for some of these things. It was just an obsession of mine that I kept with, and I've always been doing it. But this friend of mine who went in for like a liberal arts degree, I remember this girl was telling me how frustrated she was at some of the other students, and they had arguments about like, well, I'm in engineering, that's important, right? Because you can measure the success of an engineer. You can be like, well, we have a fucking building, the roads didn't collapse. And she had a bite back for them because they were diminishing the arts, which makes sense when you're off on this, this calculated area. It's not your language, I get it, but she said, you may build the future, but my type make it tolerable to live in, right? So like, if you build a box, sure, that's beautiful, that structurally, that's an amazing structure, but it's unlivable until you put something that speaks to your heart on it, right? That's why you see a lot of graffiti in the concrete jungle. You see something that makes it look less like the big concrete prison. I first started selling art when it was kind of a thing that I did as a joke. I remember when I was a kid, I went around our little military town subdivision thing, on base, with pictures that I drew of parakeets. Because I love parakeets. There would be these little stupid colorful birds that my mom had that jumped around the fucking house and shit on everything. And I remember going around to my neighbors, and I came home with like a wad of like dollar bills, and I thought I was the most successful person ever. I was like, I did it. I converted my free time and a piece of copy paper and some crayons into fucking money, and now I can go buy some G.I. Joes that look like my dad. And I felt really cool about that. But yeah, it was probably then that I realized that you could make a living doing that, but also, like, should you? I typically have projects that I've backburnered for such a long time that when I'm bored, I can just go pick up one of those and keep doing things. Like, I like to change mediums a lot. I've done a lot of graphite work. I've done murals downtown. I don't know, I like collecting the techniques because they all overlap, and they all sort of help you understand a certain concept in art, or your chosen expression of it. So I tend to spend more time than I care to admit, not even just perfecting my craft as much as doing things that make me happy, and that's art. Like, I just like creating things. I need it. As a teenager, I actually made a lot of little comics with my friends, and we did that a lot. It was a lot of fun. I have a lot of relationships with local printers that do my stuff for like conventions and whatnot. I've done a lot of shared work. So like, I've shared walls with people. We go to, there's a small but pretty strong scene here in Orlando with local artists and people that just love to obsessively create things. We do a lot of like monthly meetups, and we'll go to like a bar somewhere and we'll sketch and draw together. And we used to do things where we would go places and like draw a little bit of something and swap papers and all these things just to get a really big odd piece. There are places downtown where we've gone in as an event and shared canvases, and just if someone paints something, move to the next canvas, and you follow them, and you make this big round robin. It becomes this typically very psychedelic and very surreal looking piece. But I have a lot of those that are like blacklight sensitive and that sort of thing. My definition of success has changed over time. Back when I was younger, I wanted to be the best. I wanted to be the absolute best. I wanted to make money with it. I wanted it to be my career. Now my definition would be, if I get to do this, like what I do all now, and make a living, and something that fosters conversations with people and connection with people, versus something I used to want to do something that would separate myself from the others. And now I want to do something that brings us all back together. It's honestly really true. I would love to be that cool guy that can go off on a mountain and create something and be in a museum and you read about them later. But lately I've just sort of been wanting to be someone who gets a gets a Christmas card from a local that has a tattoo that means something to him, you know. Also to pay my landlord. That's important. If you're gonna do stuff, you're gonna have periods where you don't wanna. Like, that's the whole point. Because there are gonna be days when you wake up and there's something easier to do. If you truly feel that what you're trying to say is important to anyone, including you, then you need to get out. You need to do it.